of the revolution in Iran. And here's what's happening. Basically, right now, the information flow coming out of Iran is at a trickle, but it is coming out from various sources. We're seeing a lot of the same type of information that we've seen for the past 48 hours or so. Uh, the reports that all of the terrible scenes of bloodletting that we've seen over this past week and a half since they started using force against the revolutionaries. Um, the reports are that that is slow to a trickle as people have stopped coming out to protest and to participate in the revolution. But the fact is, people have not stopped coming out. They are still coming out from what we can tell. It's just that we are getting less confirmations, obviously, because of the blackouts of the internet, of communications, etc. So people in Iran are able to receive SMSs from the government, which obviously is allowing the government to spread more propaganda and also instructions like telling people don't go out and join the protests because we will consider you to be among them, among the terrorists, and therefore we'll shoot you. Of course, there are no terrorists in this revolution. They're literally trying to overthrow a terrorist regime. But of course, the Iranian government uses the language to twist the narrative onto their very own people and basically scare people into submission and, not protesting against them. We've seen a lot of information in the past couple of days, not just their brutal, murders by the government forces, the RGC and their ilk, people that they brought in from other countries to do their dirty work for them while the cameras are basically blacked out for the most part. One thing we know is when the internet comes back on, there's going to be a flood of videos coming out about things that have happened because there's been a lot of people at these events and you can see them filming on their cameras. So unless the IRGC plans to collect all the millions of cameras from all the people that have shown up to these things, I'm going to have a hard time suppressing all that information. Just in addition to that, we've seen a continuation of the movement of assets. We see that we get more information from various sources confirming the movement of more military into the area, apart from the USS Abraham Lincoln and other groups that we already knew about some days ago. They're moving apparently other forces into the area now that they've moved out non-essential personnel from bases in the Middle East, move them to safer locations, further away, etc. Places that are not likely to be targeted by the IRGC in any kind of counter-strike situation. On top of that, we've seen the government double down on their so-called promise to give eligible citizens, meaning those that have not been accused of or suspected of participating in any of these riots and that are, good, upstanding supporters of the dictatorship, basically. We're going to give them a bonus, if you will, which amounts to about $7, which is reportedly now not enough to buy a half a portion of kebab and rice at your typical restaurant in Tehran, which means people are going to be very infuriated about the supposed bonus that they get because they can't really do much with that $7. I guess maybe they can feed their family for a few days by buying, instead of a restaurant, obviously buying food on the market. They can get a few days worth of rice for that, $7, but not much more than that, and certainly not enough to last them through the next month. So, in addition to what I told you yesterday about the fact that January 20th is coming right up, and that's the next supposed date that the government has to pay its employees if they don't manage to make those payments on time, or if the real continues to be worth nothing and people aren't able to do anything with that money, pay for their housing or utilities or anything else, it could very well cause a situation in which even members of the IRGC begin to turn their guns on the actual government and the IRGC itself, since obviously the IRGC is what controls the country. We've seen, by the way, this has happened in many revolutions in the past, when the government is unable to pay its own people, then its own people will turn on the government. That is not an uncommon thing to see in a revolution, right? You will see that kind of thing happen normally in revolutions when the dictatorship runs out of funds to secure itself. Because at the end of the day, sure, there may be loyalists to the IRGC, but they're people, and so they also care about their families. They're loyal to their families and feeding their, spouses and children. And so it's not uncommon to see that kind of turning of events, if you will, and it can happen very quickly. If that does happen, that would probably cause the weakening of the government to the degree that Israel suggests is necessary to have a major impact with any strikes the U.S. might do, which might cause a delay in the strikes by a few days, because they're going to maybe wait and see what the people's reaction is. But another reaction could very well be, so if they time it in a way that they hit Iran first, it might cause some people to suddenly feel a sense of national unity and, not liking the outsider who's hitting Iran, especially if they accidentally hit any innocent civilians, or, something goes awry, which does happen sometimes when you shoot ordnance. So they might take the cautious move and wait a few more days, even though they would lose the night vision benefit of not having any moonlight, which is an advantage to U.S. forces and other forces who might be on the ground. But since it's not likely that the U.S. wants to enter a protracted war anyway, probability is that they want to do strikes from far away, either high up above the ground from the air or from vessels at sea. And therefore, even if they have special forces or whatever on the ground, they're not likely to want to send in, full battalions of soldiers on the ground, etc. And so a delay would be prudent, albeit coming at a high cost, because the people in Iran are obviously suffering every day, as reports are that there are literally hundreds, if not thousands, of people a day being slaughtered. Hello to you in the chat. Hi, folks. Hey, folks, if you're in the chat, please like and subscribe. I'd love it if you would. Help me out to grow this channel, just to get my word out to more people. Thank you. And so it is likely that, like I said, we will see a delay by maybe a few days if we don't see the events take place in the next 48 hours, which I've given you ample reasons and factors why that is still a likely ETA. But if the U.S. thinks that, in fact, it would be easier to overthrow the government once the IRGC is having infighting, then they might actually wait for that to happen. But still, I'm sticking for now with my original date of the 17th or 18th, when there is no vision, etc. And all the other factors line up for that time. If the assets that are necessary can be all in place by then. If not, then waiting until the 21st or later is looking increasingly. So we'll see. Either this weekend is going to be a popper, or it'll maybe happen sometime next week after the 20th. So it all really depends. on what happens on the 20th, if they manage to make the payments or not. So anyway, that's going to do for now, folks. I'll catch you on the next one. Again, like and subscribe this video. Please, thank you very much. Till the next one. Peace. Shalom. And Javed Shah.